this. We're the only people in Erie that are doing immersive theater. So be patient with us. This is our opening night. As you'll see, there's a lot of moving parts. As I said, there's 20 performers. They're actors, they're dancers. We have a behind-the-scenes documentary filmmaker, Tony C, here as well, capturing the moments. The score that you hear a little bit of is an original score that was also composed by an Erie musician, Tony Gray, who's an amazing bassist, jazz musician who he made our score last year and made the score this year. You're going to see visuals. You're going to see a lot of stuff.
So for this part of the music, I had to create some kind of, like I said, like a longing or a feeling of nostalgia or... So what I'm trying to do, the first thing I'm doing is looking for like some kind of chord. So I've got the guitar here with some like nice long delays to kind of give you that feeling of memory or nostalgia or longing or sadness or whatever. So what I'm doing is I usually kind of hold out a chord like this. And then I try to find like a melodic theme, you know, like a melody to kind of make sense of it all.
I was just asked, how do you write a show like this? We start with a theme, we come up with a story, we make a spreadsheet, break it down into 5-minute chunks. Each character, each location, where they're at, it's all down to the minute. Everything in this show is written by the second, honestly, and that's why those clocks are there with the second hand, because we need the second hand because it's that timed out for everything. So it's incredibly difficult to write. It really is. And perform.
Well, I'll just say I think the through line plot was the mother and son, and that was the one we started with. And then a lot of the people involved on the creative team had firsthand experience with family members and loved ones with Alzheimer's and dementia. So that was the one that kind of manifested first, and then with this huge building, it just became a game of adding characters that make the story more rich and how those characters can intertwine. And it was a lot of fun getting to send them all over the building. But I'd say probably like a good 5-6 months of writing. Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Our creative team, we basically started meeting weekly as soon as we ended last year's Tethered, right? Does that sound accurate?
Yeah.
Maybe we took a couple weeks off. I don't know. And yeah, Jesse and I were stuck around one time afterwards, and we started talking about Eastern philosophy, right, Jesse? And we started talking about how Western philosophy, we want to over-medicate and use technology, and we're fearful of death, and we see death as the end. I'm gonna probably hand this over to Jesse to. I'll start the thought because this is really like Jesse understood this stuff so much more than me. But really, it came around to that death isn't the end. And in this place, you all, in a meta sense, play spirits in here. Time. It's the time is a flat circle thing, and all time is happening at once. And we're made of stars, and we continue on, and we're all made of the same stuff, and mixing and intermingling together. So we kind of took that to the level of, Matt actually was asked tonight. Weren't you asked tonight, Matt, like what year it was or something at some point? And he has his answer, 2035. We're in 2025. There's also 1995 happening in here, and in theory, everything in between. And we've all passed through this space. And when Alex, collapses at minute 20 on the dot, he's continuing on in the form of Spirit Father. You want to take more from there?
Really, when it all started, I just wanted to have like a cool technology component to the show, but I didn't know what that was going to turn into. And when we settled on memory, I had the idea for the son character as just someone who is very hard-nosed and controlling, just like the typical white American who is a businessman, but he's trying to cure his mother and understand the illness. And in Eastern traditions, they just take a very different approach. They go with the flow. As John said, death's not the end. And we really wanted to focus in on something that could provide hope to the audience because, as I said earlier, so many people in the cast and crew personally knew someone that had the illness, and I did not. And so I felt my biggest contribution was, how can you look at this kind of situation in a different light that there's just different ways of internalizing things you go through. And I don't know if it came through. If people were astute and paid attention, there were subtle differences in each loop. And the climax of the show, there actually is a bit of catharsis and a kind of understanding that there is something a little bit more. We're interconnected. I don't have to cling to these memories of my loved one, and that's all I'm going to have. I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially in our culture and our society. So at the end of the day, I don't want to say that the plot should go any one way, and really having no dialogue, I think, kind of gives it a blank canvas where you can kind of watch and just internalize it in your own way. And I hope you all felt different things and emotions. That's really what I wanted to come through, more than specific plot points and like trying to solve the mystery of which character was involved with what. It's really just how it made you feel to see some people struggling through like a dark time, and then how that concluded.
So a lot of us have a personal connection to Alzheimer's, and we shared our stories with each other, and I did a feature film called Schism. It was based on my father who had Alzheimer's, so I'll share that my dad was like the strongest person I knew, and I looked up to him. He was a war veteran. He ran like 5 miles every day after work. He was a union leader. He was a lover of nature, and basically he's ingrained in me. And to see him over the course of 5 years, like once he had dementia, like stripped completely to like a hollow husk of himself. Obviously, that affected me, still affects me today. So, and there, when I made that film, which was in like 2008, there were millions less people in the United States that had Alzheimer's than today. So we know that this story touches and affects so many people. So the neurons that you saw scattered throughout the place that Matt works on, he's trying to fix things. He's trying to use technology with his AI, the nurse, to fix her. As we all want to fix somebody that's going through this affliction.
So I would love to hear from the actors, what was it like having to tell a story while using barely if any words?
Speaking as an actor, it's very unique to do a performance without speaking. But I am a kind of a student of the game as well, in terms of I'm a student of old film and I'm a student of comedy. And so I kind of channeled the old silent films that I've watched in the past, and I primarily focus on comedy as far as that's concerned. So looking at films like Laurel and Hardy, or looking at films from Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin or Harold Lloyd or those guys. Yeah, that's another one. That is another one. So that's kind of just how I approached it, especially since I did have some comedy bits in there as well, so I could kind of channel that. Of course, the difference is if I'm Oliver Hardy and if JJ's Stan Laurel, I would be mimicking for him to get the keys and open the safe, and then subtitles would show up on the screen, so you knew what I was saying. In this case, that you just had to figure it out. To do that, to play with that, just something unique that I've never done, because it's not something that's done, because when they did silent films, they were doing it wasn't an artistic choice. It was because they had no choice. Once they figured out how to put sound in film, they stopped it. So we're choosing to do it, and it was fun. It was a fun challenge. It was fun to kind of just pretend like I was Buster Keaton or something for a while. Yeah, it was cool.
Frustrating it.
This year we were told it's very movement heavy. And I said, uh-oh. Well, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna do this. We'll see. And then I get an email from one of the co-directors, Adele, like, yeah, you're doing this, you're playing the regular, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, okay, great. So maybe I get words. No. I don't get words, and so so now I'm thinking, and I come into these rehearsals, and everyone's like, ha, 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 like twirl, and I'm like, oh man. But this is what I've always had to work with from here up. So I realized it wasn't my problem. That's the audience's problem. I'm doing all the work from here up. Pay attention. Like, I'm gonna put it all on my face. I'm gonna put it in my emotions, in the sounds that I can make, and hopefully that comes across. And it was very, very exhausting, but it was rewarding in the end, for sure.
I actually was just in the dressing room saying that this is the strangest thing I've been doing theater since I was 12, and this is the first time I've had to do a show where I didn't say anything, and it's a really new and unique and strange experience. There's a lot of internal dialogue going on. So as I'm interacting with people, in my mind, I'm saying words, and those words are conveying the emotions, and I'm hearing what they're saying to me in response, and And if I am being menaced by the ghost of, or not the ghost, if I'm being menaced by, a spirit of sorts, I'm imagining what that spirit is saying to my character and how my character would feel about that. So, yeah, it's a lot of internalized, and it is really exhausting. I feel like I don't do a whole heck of a lot in the show, but then again, I'm tired after. So it's different. It's a different experience.
For my professional career, or as a choreographer, working without words is just another day at work. I mean, that's the norm. I worked with a dance company for 3 years, and at one point, several dance companies, but this one in particular, 3 years, and it occurred to me how odd it was that the people with season subscriptions never heard me speak after 3 years. Then I got into the world of musical theater, and everybody's singing and dancing and talking and all that. But so I've kind of lived in both. But dancers, we express most of the time without words, so it's just kind of normal for us.
I was one of the club dancers. I echo that, used to not speaking, but what was challenging about being a club dancer in that ballroom space was huge. And a lot this was great, but a lot of the audience members stayed against the wall in the chairs. So I found it very difficult. And sometimes I probably went too far being a little bit campy, but we were a memory in the 90s, and I was over exaggerating everything to try to get the people way back in the room, where the person on the balcony to see the important moments and get the storylines. That was challenging.
Coming in as a choreographer and primarily dancer into now working with individuals who are more theater-based and acting-based, for us to come in as dancers and for me to come in as a choreographer, it was a learning experience only because we are used to expressing ourselves through our body in a certain way and what movement typically looks like in order to do that. But then coming into this building with all of these people who are learning to use their bodies in a way that they have not needed to do before in order to convey a point helped to strengthen our outlook on choreography, because we were able to take concepts or ideas or the way that they were choosing to express themselves and adapt it into our choreography or our movement dynamics so that it looked cohesive, but we were also learning from them in a way that we can then use moving forward.
Alex, the young father, he, you're not a trained dancer. So he had to learn to dance for this role, and I think he did incredibly. And thank you to Sage for teaching him. It's beautiful.
So I tried to prioritize the physicality of my character, not only for the sake of my character, but to help draw people's attentions to the important moments. So at the beginning of each loop, around minutes 10 to 20, we're in the ballroom. We see the owner come in. She's obviously very distressed by that. The owner is trying to, take drugs and put it in her own cup, but then, the 90s father takes it. And so at the rhythmic parts in the music, I try to shift my gaze each time to the table, to, the young mother and father, to Solveig, each point, so that you could see that something was happening.
Normally I'm at the table when I drink and I discover my glass has water in it. Oh my God, what happened to the one that was all drugged up? And you were right there, and I just turned to you and was like, And you said, oh, the gentleman right up there. And so normally, without that bit of information, I'm scanning the room looking for who could possibly have drank from that glass. But you gave it to me, so I had to like focus right on young daddy, like immediately. But it was really cool. It was neat. So thanks. You're in the right place at the right time.
With our sponsors, there was a tier in the sponsorship where if you donated a certain amount, we would include your story in this year's Tethered. And so one of our sponsors donated that amount and shared with us her story of her father and how Alzheimer's dementia affected their lives, their relationship, coupled with alcoholism. So he was an alcoholic, and that trickled throughout the family as well, affected the family dynamics. He ended up getting in a severe car accident, which is, if anyone caught the newspaper clipping or anything like that, there's an article about a very bad car accident that's related to our sponsor's story. And then he also suffered from dementia and Alzheimer's, and so she was constantly in question of whether he was still present, whether he knew who she was. He was wondering who she was at moments, and it strained their relationship. But it was those moments when they could connect, when they did recall one another, that fueled their relationship.
Calling it the CIA room was the best compliment ever. Yeah, so when we decided that we were doing the show at the Maennerchor, we had just come from doing the show at PACA, and we were on all 5 floors of PACA, and it was very convenient because they had a theater there, they had sets, they had props, and lighting, speakers, so it was cushy. And then coming here, we realized with such a small, limited budget, we can only do so much, so let's lean into the style of the existing rooms, and that's how the plot grew to be this club in the 90s with a dance team that performs here regularly, and then all these other fun, zany characters that inhabit this space. So, like this room, for instance, we did not do anything. But I wanted to keep like a cool technology component to the show, and that was the brain technology that the son invents to go into her mind. And so we came up with the idea of these escape areas, because with no talking, it is very limited to convey the plot and things like that. So JJ will tell you,
2 years
he's master of body language. So we had this room, the CIA room, awesome, and Mother's sitting room, which is on the ballroom floor. Those are like a construct within the memory where the son is able to put all his clues together, collect his thoughts, and then obviously engage with the audience.
You could engage in this room too?
No, only his office. But I would pop in at times, and it seemed like some people were really grilling him.
She hasn't gotten better, and having to go in every time, and I don't remember things when I come out, but things haven't changed.
50% of it is just kind of bullshitting you along the way. So tried to my best to do what I could, but it was fun. I guess there was a lot of moments where I would get asked questions, but the favorites were when people would come in and, again, try to help me. Have you seen this spot right here? Instead of asking questions, they'd point me in the right direction, or, I saw this in there. These are the moments, and like just really being helpful to that character. So.
By the third time doing it, I was actually angry at the boss.
And I could tell on that.
I was actually angry at my boss, and I'm like, fuck this bitch. I did not expect to I'm tired of picking up these fucking papers. And I was like, okay, this is not acting.
I'll just add in for levity's sake that it was fun having people both try to just follow me and accuse me of stuff, point out things that should be stolen, and actually actively try to be an accomplice. Like, I would take something and people would be like, oh, what are we stealing next? And then like I'd go to like a painting and they'd be like right there beside me and I'd be like, okay, what am I doing right now? Okay, diversion, smoke bomb, go.
My job is to take care of the nurse, or of exploring mother. My job as a nurse is to take care of her. However, I also go through about, the memory, the brain, whatever, and look for anomalies or, things to see if they're in check. And he caught my attention, and just watching him dance and seeing her, like, there's a human element that I can't compute. That's not in my code. So that's the first time you see it. And then up in the balcony, all the dancers are coming together. That's symbolizing like the neurons working as one, and then they're kind of dispersing. And then there's this whole moment where exploring mother and 1990s father and mother come in, and that's all, again, humanness and understanding that I don't get. So that's kind of where the glitching comes from.
As soon as I see Diane entering in the first loop, I have had a relationship with her in the past, and so I am following her, but I actually don't, I think that this is a little less clear as to why she is of importance to me. I get more and more agitated as the death scene is repeating and repeating, because in my mind, I'm navigating both that I have Alzheimer's and I'm in this place that I remember, and so I'm kind of in that place of like trying to remember and trying to understand, and then having flashes of the young me and my beloved on a very traumatic evening that I have pushed away. So one of those memories that's so deeply seated that I can't access it. I haven't been able to really access it. So in these loops, I am revisiting and having to face some of those things. So I'm tracking, especially in loop 2, I feel like I've already seen how it's unfolded, but I am angry with her to begin with. We have had a relationship. She was my boss at one point, and I had to change relationships with her from the time when I was a dancer to the time when I was pregnant and a single mother. So so I was angry with her for not being more responsible, and then the more that I understand that she has a relationship with it, there's an interaction that happens at the drink progressively. The third time I am letting something go, and the letting something go that happens in the third loop that happens at that point, and then again downstairs when I forgive the owner and I sort of allow the events that happened to happen instead of trying to prevent them and kind of going back in and trying to redo them.
what I came to the conclusion of throughout the there's a lot of workshopping and character building that went along with that. Yeah. And so my character is essentially, I played it out of desperation. So I had to figure out where that desperation was coming from. So in my mind, and again, it's just open to interpretation, but in my mind, my character was married with children and was in some kind of a bad way, about to lose maybe his house, whatever, and needed money now. He knows regular because he's a regular, and I work as a cook at the place. And I also know that he has stashed away some jewels and money around the building, hence why there was a map that we were fighting over for a while. But so I concocted this plan to basically take advantage of the regular, purely out of desperation. There's some guilt in there as well. I hired a thief to help me, and sometimes things went well, sometimes things did not. But that was kind of the the whole story that I kind of concocted as we were going through it. Is really what it was.
That just goes to show you that even audience members are getting a new take and interpretation on things, and they're thinking it through, and getting something that maybe we wouldn't have even recognized that we can take into next week or tomorrow. Like that's
So
incredible.
Absolutely. I had a couple of things that happened very differently tonight, and so I guess I am actually kind of curious of what it was like to be in the room with me.
Did you take my tickets? Did you take them? Did you take the tickets? They were great. I know you did.
Especially in the sitting room, because I am exhibiting things that are really hard to experience, I think, as a caregiver, as a family member. And so I was sensitive to that, especially today, feeling as though there was I had a question in my mind about that. And then there were a couple of surprises where there was someone where I need to be at a couple of different points. And so that was giving me a moment of problem solving. So I might have surprised somebody else as I went to reach in the suitcase.
I know for me on that, I wanted to clarify that I am a medical professional. So I was kind of like, do I give that information or not? But no, I don't know you currently situation.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, so what was that like for you, may I ask?
Oh, it was just how much information, especially since I had the camera like right next to me. Right. So it was do I want that at this moment? Right. Now I don't care, but at the moment I was like, do I care?
Got it.
Okay. In the weeks of rehearsals that we've done, we've been alone. So to actually come into this and have to work around people being in your way, it adds an extra challenge that they didn't get to rehearse.
So I had already mentioned that I had this really special moment tonight. That was really such a high point for me, and it taught me a lot about what I was looking for in my character. I really wanted to be cared for and to be seen, and so that was just really, really beautiful. Aside from that high point, then I had a friend in the audience, so that was lovely, so thank you. But I also I feel so grateful for the opportunity to dance this role. I do know a number of people who have suffered from Alzheimer's disease, and so it was actually really frightening to take on this part. And I think I felt really cared for by most audiences. There was maybe one night where I felt more distance, but for the most part, I really am just so grateful for that connection. And so I thank you for that. trying to help me. That was really beautiful. And so I kept learning throughout the performance because I was learning from the audience and also from just deepening the experience. So anyway, it was an evolving kind of thing. Very intimidating at first to try to figure out how to be in my something that might be more like realism and something that'd be more abstract. And so I was terrified of the sitting room at first. Like, am I going to be able to come up with things? So for me, I had to stick with my scenario to sort of maintain that space of focus.
I hope more than anything that the audience takes away from this experience that sense of connection and knowing that they're not alone in the world. Especially in these times, I think that people are feeling scared and alone, and in that space, you feel that you aren't, and that we are all connected, and that each person plays a role. And they each have an important part in this whole existence, in this whole masterpiece that we're living through.
Yeah, we had questions about, what does this show mean? What are you trying to say? And that was at the talk back after our shows. And I remember thinking in the moment, well, I don't really want to tell the audience one way or another, how they should be interpreting the scenes. I really liked the idea that you could come and watch it and kind of find a meaning for yourself. And I still think that way. Obviously the show's over now, but we do have some video footage of it. And I think a takeaway I would like people to walk away with is to just give immersive theater and other art experiences that are a little outside of the box. They can surprise you, and I think it is fun to explore some of that territory that you might not be exposed to otherwise.
Tethered first started out as a shot in the dark just to see if we could do a live show of this scale. And when we pulled that off the first year, it was to see how we could raise the stakes in this second year, the Memory and Consciousness show. And I feel like we achieved everything that we set out to. The audience was there. We had people travel from across the states, which was really cool. To come to this, just 4-night show in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I feel like with Tethered, we are kind of setting down a standard and a marker for a new art form that's not that new. I mean, it's like a 15-year-old art form. But I think we're swinging big with Tethered, and we're bringing more and more people into this art form and into this show as we keep going.